In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon His last and beloved Messenger Muhammad, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. The title of this presentation is Satan and Viruses. Now, as an introduction to this presentation, let's understand the title, Satan and Viruses. Now, I noticed that when I talk about Satan and how he affects us, as I talked so many times before in my lectures about how Satan affects us by whispering to us, talking to us by a voice matching the one we think with and we hear on our brain, talking to us and making us hear ideas in our mind containing harm to hurt ourselves and others, lust and perverted sexual ideas, and blasphemy. Now, when I say this, so many people, they have a problem to fathom, to understand, or to believe the existence of this creature who can affect us by matching his voice, the one we think with, and putting ideas in our mind. We hear ideas in our mind as if we are thinking to ourselves with these ideas. So some people, they have a problem believing this. So, with the guidance of Allah the Almighty, in this presentation, I will endeavor to make this concept or make this truth closer to you by comparing the effect of Satan on us to viruses, bacteria, fungus, the one that we know. So to start with, if we look at the screen, we see that our body is comprised of basically two things: the physical aspect and the mental aspect, body and soul. So the body is the physical aspect of humans, and the soul is the, let's say, the mental side. So linking this also to a verse in the Quran, in the Noble Quran, in chapter 2 verse 155, which reads, "And certainly Allah God shall test you with something of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives and fruits, but give glad tidings to the patient ones." So in this Quranic verse, Allah is telling us that He will test us in this life. So meaning that this life is a test for you. And linking this to the fact that our body is comprised of body and soul, a physical side and a mental side. So it makes sense that you will be tested both physically and mentally. So it's not only the test in this life is physical, but it's also mental. So we understand the physical test, and one main aspect of the physical test in this life is the illnesses we endure due to viruses, bacteria, fungus, etc. So we see, for example, this is the structure of the influenza virus. So these are creatures that Allah God Almighty created to test us with in this life. So viruses, bacteria, fungus, they are of the creation of Allah God Almighty, and they are ways that we are tested with these creatures. Now, on the mental side, Allah God Almighty teaches us from the Quran the creature that He created to test us mentally. And we learn this in the Quran in chapter 7 verse 20, which reads, "Then Satan whispered to them both in order to uncover that which was hidden from them of their private parts. He said, 'Your Lord did not forbid you this tree, save you should become angels or become of the immortals.'" So in this Quranic verse, Allah is telling a story of what happened between Satan and Adam and Eve. And we learn from the story that Satan affected Adam mentally. He whispered to them with a voice matching the one they think with in their mind, telling them ideas to disobey Allah God Almighty. So we learn that the effect of Satan on us is mental, not physical, mental. So we learn again that the creature that we are tested with mentally is Satan. So on the physical side we have viruses, bacteria, fungus. On the mental side we have Satan. So I hope now it becomes clearer to understand this fact in the Quran, that Satan is real. He is a creature. He affects you like viruses affect you physically, but he affects you mentally. So to proceed, now how to deal with physical tests in this life. So when Allah tests us physically, how do we deal with these tests? 3 words: diagnosis, cure, and patience. Again, the way that we should cope with these physical tests: diagnosis, cure, and patience. What do I mean by this? Firstly, when a person is infected with a disease or an illness, he looks for the symptoms, trying to understand the cause of this disease. Then he looks at the cure, looking at the mechanism on how this virus affects him and trying to block this effect. And lastly, patience. Patience over the symptoms, always seeking the help of Allah God Almighty, coming closer to Allah during these times of difficulty. That is the way to deal with physical tests in this life. And another point to say here, that how can we prove the existence of viruses, bacteria, or fungus? How can you prove the existence of something that you cannot see? Now the answer is very easy, that you match the symptoms to the theory. For example, when you look at the symptoms of effect of a certain virus on you, you say, okay, I have the symptoms 1, 2, 3. This must mean the existence of something that causes these symptoms. That is the way you prove the existence of something you don't see by its effect on you. Like, for example, the wind. You cannot see the wind, but for example, when there is a lack of oxygen, you suffocate. This means that there is something there that you need, but you cannot see. You prove it by its effect on you. I hope that's clear. And also another point, there is a danger of denying the existence of something that affects you. For example, if somebody gets ill and he says, no, there are no viruses, no bacteria. When you deny the existence of something that affects you negatively, what this produces, it produces that the damage of that creature, of that virus on you, it becomes more. Because when you deny its existence, you don't look for its diagnosis or cure. Now let's apply all of this knowledge to Satan, the creature that causes us mental pain and anguish. So to apply this on Satan, firstly, how to prove that Satan exists, how to prove that this creature who affects us mentally by matching his voice to the one we think within our mind and putting ideas in our minds, causing us mental disturbances. How to prove that Satan exists? As I said, the way to prove the existence of something you cannot see is to match its symptoms to the theory. So in the Quran, Allah Almighty is teaching us the symptoms of the effect of Satan on us. In chapter 2, verse 169, which reads, He, i.e. Satan, commands you what is harmful, sinful, and to say about Allah God what you have no knowledge of. So Allah gives us the symptoms of the effect of Satan on us, that Satan commands us ideas of harm, to hurt ourselves and others, ideas of lust and perverted sexual ideas, and to say about Allah what you have no knowledge of, blasphemy, denying Allah, denying Prophet Muhammad, denying the Quran. So these are the symptoms of the effect of Satan on us, on each and every one of us. So these are the symptoms. And if you want to think of it like a theory, the theory says that Satan causes you mental pain and anguish by whispering to you ideas of harm, lust, and blasphemy. If you want to think of it as a theory, let's say. Now, how to prove any theory? The way to prove any theory is to compare its predictions with the reality, with the practical world. Now, in the practical world, if you ask people suffering from mental disturbances, what kind of thoughts that cause you this mental pain? They will say to you that I experience thoughts of harm, ideas telling to kill myself and others, ideas of lust and filth, and ideas of blasphemy. Now this is the symptoms experienced in the practical world. Now if you compare this with the symptoms of Satan, as stated in the Quran, in the Quranic verse, that he, i.e. Satan, commands you what is harmful, sinful, and to say about Allah what you have no knowledge of. So we see a perfect match between the, let's say, the theory of how Satan affects us and the practical world. This means that Satan, the existence of Satan, is a fact, and this proves the truthfulness of the mechanism of how Satan affects us, as stated in the Quran, that he matches his voice, as we learn from the Quran, that he matches his voice to the one we think with. So, now the next step, after we diagnosed mental disturbances and we learned that the sole reason that people experience mental disturbances is Satan. Now what's the cure? Again, the cure, as is the case with viruses, you know the mechanism on how virus affects you and try to block this mechanism. And likewise, in the Quran, Allah the Almighty teaches us the mechanism on how Satan affects us, as we learn by pondering upon verse number 4 of chapter 114 of the Quran, which reads, "From the evil of the whisperer who hides." So Allah is telling us that Satan causes evil by whispering to us and at the same time hiding from us, meaning that Satan talks to you but at the same time he hides from you. And the only way that Satan, your companion devil, can affect you and talk to you at the same time hide from you is if he matches his voice with your own voice. He makes his voice with regards to tone, speech, the language you know, the speed in which you talk. He makes his voice identical to the one you hear in your mind when you are thinking quietly to yourself. And you start hearing ideas in your mind, and you think that yourself is telling you this because the voice is identical, but actually it's your companion devil telling you ideas of harm to hurt yourself and others, ideas of lust and perverted sexual ideas, and blasphemy, insulting Allah, God Almighty, insulting Prophet Muhammad, insulting the Quran, insulting Muslims, giving you anger against Muslims, and all of this. So now we understood the mechanism on how Satan affects us. Now how to block it, how we will be cured from this. We learn this again from the Quran, from chapter 2, verse 168, which reads, "O people, eat of that which is lawful and good on the earth, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Verily, he is to you an open enemy." So the cure from the effect of Satan on us, from our mental disturbances, is to realize that the voices we hear in our mind by a voice match the one we think with is not yourself. And Allah will not judge you for hearing these thoughts, but will judge you whether you agree and carry them out or not. And the way to deal with these thoughts of Satan, do not follow the footsteps of Satan, meaning do not agree nor carry out what Satan is telling you. Do not agree again nor carry out what Satan is telling you in your mind. For example, he's telling you with a voice match the one you think with in your mind, that look, you are poor and this life is hard, so why don't you go and steal or kill somebody to get money? You know, it's difficult, you need to make ends meet. So you see, Satan gives you the idea and gives you the justification to do it. So the way to deal with this, do not follow the footsteps of Satan, do not agree nor carry out what he's telling you. That is the way to do it. There is no pill you can take that the ideas will stop. There is no kind of ritual you can do to make them go. The way to do it is by knowledge, knowing from the Quran that the source of these thoughts is a creature matching the voice I think with. I cannot see him, and the way Allah teaches you to deal with this, do not agree with what he's telling you and do not carry them out. Time after time, his effect on you will become lower and lower, and he will no longer affect your sayings or doings in this life. And to know more details about this topic, please visit my website at www.quran-miracle.com, and you can email me at zaidquran@yahoo.com, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all.